What's happening, party people? Happy fucking Friday to you. All right, let's share it out on the Facebook. On the enemy platform here, I've cleared my web browser history, so now I have to actually Google it. Looks like the Antifa interview is the first video that comes up when you search Outrage TV YouTube. We're trying to put together a new little sketch for you next week. It's going to be similar to the Antifa interview. Mr. Chip Williamson digging into the real stories that matter there, covering the democratic socialist phenomenon that's secretly Nazism in disguise there. All right, post it out on Facebook. Beautiful. All right, what's happening? What's happening, everybody? Been out here on these mean streets of LA, out here in the rain, you know, getting in little fender benders out there. You know, I tried to change lanes like a savage the other day, and somebody stopped short in front of me and busted up my little fender there. My hatchback took the brunt of the damage, and we're gonna be, you know, letting the insurance handle all of that. Almost got in another accident in Beverly Hills. Somebody just trying to pull out in front of me. That one wasn't even my fault. I was just trying to go, and somebody's like, I'm like, man, people don't, you know, out here getting crazy in the rain in Los Angeles. But the Postmates money has been tremendous. Nobody wants to go out of their house and pick up their own goddamn food, so I'm there for you. You know, I as much as I, you know, encourage discipline and hard work and getting out there and making it happen in society, I mean, my job, I benefit directly from lazy people who don't want to go out and get their own food. All right, they just want it delivered to their doorstep, and you know, that's what I'm here for. All right, you pay me an extra tip, I'll feed it to you. All right, I'll hold the drumstick as you gnaw that motherfucker clean. All right, $20 tip, and it can all happen. You won't even have to hold your drumstick. I'll be there for you, drumstick holder extraordinaire. You know, doing what I can out here to try and pay the bills. Got my car note covered, and it's that broke life, baby, where you know, living on eggs and broccoli and some 80% hamburger there. It's the good life when you got a grill and you know how to cook scrambled eggs like I do. All right, I'm the scrambled egg king. That's that breakfast of champions. I'm gonna be eating scrambled eggs. You know, if I had $100 million in the bank, I'd be eating scrambled eggs for breakfast, dude. That's that unbeatable breakfast. Yeah, dude, doing what I can out here to make it happen on these wet Los Angeles streets, delivering food to these lazy people who need me. All right, to support their lazy habits, and I'm glad they have them. That's how I pay my rent. And occasionally, you know, they get so lazy that they forget to even answer the door, and I get free meals. So, I would recommend Postmates, but I don't want any competition for my business. I got Beverly Hills locked down. I'm the Beverly Hills courier. All right, so Postmates is a terrible job. Don't do it. All right, especially if you're out here in Los Angeles, especially if you, you know, if you're gonna do it, stay out of Beverly Hills. It's my territory. I get territorial, dude. I might bust your fender up. All right. We got to hold down our territory. Okay. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. I I started a free trial on Netflix, and we're going to talk about how horrible some of these comedy specials I was watching are. Just the blatant ignorance in the setups to a lot of these jokes, and then just the shallow retardation that passes off for good comedy now. Good comedy now. I'm gonna get into that when we get a little more people here. I got the hand cannon back, his back working, so we can get some full-fledged dragon energy today. Oh shit! The dragon is back! Yeah, dude, I'm tired of that goddamn Jewel piece of shit. This thing, $30 for 4 pods, you know, and I was having to refill them, and it just tasting burnt and horrible. And I got a new atomizer for this bad boy, and we off and kicking again, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Game of Thrones in this motherfucker. That's what it's all about, baby. Gonna get the dragon energy kicked off on a Friday afternoon. That's how you do it. Oh, so I'm gonna get into some of the particulars of this, Netflix cesspool here, and I'm gonna talk about people who are skeptical of evolution and simultaneously believe the Jesus story, and how they make conservatives look bad, and it's kind of a discrediting effect there if you aren't convinced that primordial soup could come together and form basic amino acids and start, which has been proven in a lab that you can have these basic organic compounds and they can form amino acids, and the amino acids can come together and form single-celled organisms. You don't believe that, but you do believe that Jesus came back from the dead and was a zombie, and he was the Son of God, and there is a God, and no proof for that, but you believe it instead of the primordial soup there. What up, Justin Potts? What's good, player? And people always talk about the Big Bang as if it's, this incomprehensible, stupid thing, which, if you look at it on its face, it does seem incomprehensible and stupid that, out of an infinitesimally small point, the universe suddenly exploded into existence and created everything around us. That does sound stupid on the surface, but I think it's more of a limitation of our instruments. Like, the only reason we came up with the Big Bang Theory is because there's this huge wall of nuclear energy that we see, and we've theorized that that's like coming from a big giant explosion that started the universe. But that's the limitation of our instruments. That's as far back as we can detect. 14 billion years in the past there. And it was funny. Like, just imagining the vastness of space is ridiculous sometimes. Like, like I was driving by the big propaganda building, the CNN headquarters down in Hollywood, and it was scrolling across the news feed there on the outside of the building that we found an Earth-like planet, and it said, I think it was like only 12 light years away, and it's like only 12 light years. A light year is 6 trillion miles about, so it's only 72 trillion miles away. Our Earth-like neighbors there. Well, Justin Potts, yeah. Let's see. What's up, Zarek? Um, Trump. Do I think Trump is going to be impeached? I'll get to that right after the evolution talk. So, all right, Trump impeached. What's good, Sadiq? How you feeling out there on a Friday? All right, Justin Potts. That still confuses me on a molecular level. Did anyone figure out what subatomic particles collided to create everything? Well, there's experiments like I was just looking this up, called the Miller-Urey experiment, that it says was a chemical experiment that stimulated the conditions thought at the time to be present on the early Earth. They tested the chemical origin of life under these conditions. Um, and they found that when you put these basic organic compounds that would have been present on an early Earth, you put them in, the primordial soup there, and you allow for a certain amount of time, they do start to form amino acids, and amino acids are the backbone to come together and form single-celled organisms. So it's a totally, feasible theory that, you have basic organic compounds. Now, you make the argument, where did those original organic compounds, absolutely originate? Where did they, who knows? But, they came to Earth somehow. I mean, whether it was on a damn, rock coming down from the planet, from another planet or somewhere else in the universe, who the fuck knows? But when they are left in conditions that are able to support life, we're close enough to the sun, and we have enough liquid water on the planet, and you have those organic compounds, they do form amino acids, and amino acids form single-cell organisms. And to me, it's a lot more of a compelling theory than God did it. Than the Adam and Eve story, and Noah's Ark. And I think, conservatives have to be able to separate the morality and the metaphysics of religion. Like these fundamentalists who they believe in a Christian morality and a Christian ethic, and that's beautiful, and that's helps society to function optimally. But they at the same time believe people can walk on water and turn water into wine and come back from the dead, and they believe that there's a big invisible man in the sky who says that murder is wrong, but he can decide to murder the entire planet except Noah on a whim, and that's fine. And the entire human race started with Adam and Eve, and we're all products of incest from their offspring, I suppose. So that the Bible story is how you can choose that over just based on some skepticism of the primordial soup or the Big Bang theories. It's you're discrediting yourself as a thinker, I think. If you say I'm a literal Christian, the Bible is literally true, you're like, man, that is that's so disconnected from what you've experienced your entire life. Have you known anybody that's come back from the dead? Have you ever seen water turned into wine? Have you had a conversation with God? If so, maybe you should record a podcast and let us all listen to it. Justin Potts says, I have the personal belief that the original stories were created in order to dumb down what actually happened so early peoples could sort of understand it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like to me, is that there are parables and archetypes that are describing incredible things that happened, and I think Jesus probably did exist, and I think he was a legitimate bad motherfucker. He was, he he was a truth speaker or whatever. He stood up against the Roman establishment, and basically, he was a good leader, and a lot of people followed him. And he had these ideas of morality and how we should treat each other, and that's all fine and good. Where you lose me is when you start describing him as some kind of wizard that had these, magical power. He's essentially Harry Potter, and I can't get on board. I can't get on board with that because it's just a denial of all of your sensory experience in your own life. Like, yeah, back then, there was all this magical shit happening, but none of that happens anymore. But it will in the future. When Jesus comes back, it's just you have to disconnect your brain from your own sensory experience so much to believe that that's actually true. I think you're discrediting yourself as a thinker, and you're opening yourself up to the mockery that allows the atheist left to just ridicule the right and make fun of them as these regressive retards that believe in magic. And yeah, Jesus was an alien disguised as a human. That's Men in Black predicted it. Okay, no, but I think it's a discrediting to the actual good ideas on the right, because then if you believe the Jesus story and you're rah about it, and you're like, no, this is the absolute truth, and then you start talking about free market capitalism, people are just as skeptical of the free market capitalism arguments as your Jesus zombie story. So I don't think it does the right any favors to be so but religion is falling away. Unfortunately, the morality is going away with religion, because atheists have done such a good job of mocking the Christian right that they've just become a laughing stock. And of course the Christian church doesn't do themselves any favors by not letting their priests get married and have kids, and then a bunch of pedophiles are drawn to the positions, and they end up fucking a lot of kids, and then the Vatican, covers their eyes and pretends it's not happening and moves them to other churches to protect them and shit. That doesn't do them any favors either. And so the religious right has just become a laughing stock. And metaphysically, I would say rightfully so. We need to move past those antiquated magical thinking ideas that go along with the Christian metaphysics there. We need to hang on to the moral truths that are explicated and treat them as the fables that they are, and glean the moral lessons from those stories and use those in reality. But we can't take them as literal truth, or you just end up discrediting the whole system of ideas. And people are just like, fuck it, I'm an atheist, and you know what, I'm a nihilist now too, because I'm just gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't need any morals. I'm just gonna shoot up heroin and swipe on my dating app until I get some pussy, and eat a pizza and fall asleep, and that's life. And we need a bigger government because there's no God, so we got to treat the government as our God. And there's no ethics, so taxation being theft doesn't mean anything. Just take those white people's money. And see, that's the problem, was when you harp on this metaphysical God existing and you have no proof for it, you open yourself up for mockery, and then the atheists on the left come in, make fun of you, and they have legitimate points to do so. And then the morals go out the window, and the government grows, because people need that, where God took its place in people's minds. They need that, watching father figure in their head to be like, am I doing okay? And like, people need that. And so instead of having abstract moral principles they look to, it's like, am I doing okay? a lot of people can't process abstractions that well. So instead, they're just like, oh, the government is that thing now. And so they don't have a problem with the government growing bigger and more taxes, because that's the replacement for God. Well, if God's not watching over us, who's going to watch over us? Who's going to make sure we're doing okay? We need the NSA to watch over us. We need them to listen to our phones. Okay, if you're not doing anything wrong, what do you worry about? The NSA is the new Lord and Savior. Right? So then with the fall off of religion comes the justification for bigger and bigger government, and you let the communists come in, and the moral relativists, and the nihilists, and then because they have good points pointing out the flaws and the logical inconsistencies of religious metaphysics, they work their way in, and then they're like, well, they have good points about, religion being bullshit on some level. Maybe they have good points about universal income, universal basic income, and free college and free healthcare. Because the government is our new god. Let's just let them handle that stuff and give it to us all for free. And so, I think that's the big. That's what the new, quote unquote, new right has gotten a foothold now, because there's a lot of people that see the economics of the right are valid. The free market capitalism, small government, that's how society operates at its best. That's how we have the most amount of efficiency and innovation and prosperity and wealth. That's why America is what it is, because we're still coasting off of the technological innovations that happened in the late 1800s. I mean, the Industrial Revolution. I mean, we kicked so much ass in that 50 some odd years that we're still coasting on all of those innovations. And then the big tech companies have kind of coasted us over into the 21st century. But those are the valid ideas on the right that unfortunately get discredited and lumped in with this, stereotype of the dumb Christian redneck right-winger. All their economic ideas are right, and they're right to hate communism and big government, but those ideas get lumped in with, singing songs about Jesus and pretending people can be magic. So I think that's the best thing the right can do to win in this war of ideas here, is we got to drop the religious metaphysics and just be like, I can't prove that that's true. If you have faith, okay, but don't make it a big deal, or else it gets weird, because then you just open yourself up to legitimate mockery. And that's why a lot of the people on the new right are atheists, and they just recognize the validity of Austrian economics and small governments and the non-aggression principle. That's been the progression. We've had, used to be people would judge their behavior against what they thought God wanted them to do, right? Well, once God starts to dissolve out of the consciousness of people in the West, then the leftists and the communists and the nihilists and the atheists come in, and they're like, there is no God. What you need to do is have the government look over you and try and measure your behavior against what the government wants you to do. And if it's legal, then it's okay. And the government is the new God, so we pray to the government. We focus on these politicians and put all of our energy into this political system and arguing politics on social media. And like, this is the religious practice of the day, because it's hard to get people to believe in religious metaphysics when it's so easily debunked online. You just go and look at R atheism on Reddit, and you're like 10 minutes there, and you're like, oh, this is all bullshit. I figured that out when I was 12 years old. I was like, it only took me like a year of the internet and be like, oh, Yeah, the Noah story is horseshit, isn't it? Um, but yeah, once that happens, then you need that standard to compare your behavior to. You're like, oh, how am I acting? Is it correct? Oh, the government says it's correct. Okay, all right, whatever the government says. And then the government just grows bigger and bigger and bigger and gets more corrupt and more corrupt, and starts handing out goodies to people to get them addicted to the welfare system and Medicare and Medicaid, and all these little handouts and little goodies they can bribe you with. And the dumb people really eat that up. They just can't get enough of that. The government goodies, stealing the Robin Hood government there, stealing from those evil rich people who earn their own money, and giving it to the rightfully deserving oppressed classes there. Um, they get addicted to that. And what needs to happen instead is we have to have an objective moral standard that isn't based on magic and isn't based on power. Magic is the Jesus story. Power is the ever expanding government. So both of those things, one of them is just illogical and unprovable, and the other one is straight up evil. And so what we need to have instead is an objective moral standard that's an abstract that we can compare our actions to. And that's the non-aggression principle is the number one bedrock principle that you can go back to, and that's pretty easy to understand. It does sound kind of pussified though when you're like, I'm an adherent of the non-aggression principle, and it's like, oh, so you're a pacifist pussy, are you? And like, no, self-defense, totally valid. If you threaten me, you gonna get it back tenfold, buddy. Totally valid under the non-aggression principle, but we have to have that objective standard to hold it universal. So theft is wrong according to the non-aggression principle, so the government is illegitimate and straight up evil. And so until people have that realization, we're going to continue to have this back and forth battle of you're an idiot because you believe in communism. You're an idiot because you believe in Jesus as the magic wizard person. And you just have this back and forth, and nobody gets anywhere because the other side just thinks they're so intellectually superior to the other one because they can cherry pick the dumbest ideas in each part of little part of the ideology there, and they just get more and more dug in to their side. And so we have to have the objective principled standard there to measure people's behavior to, and I think the non-aggression principle is a good start. That's why libertarianism has kind of taken off in the last decade. Stefan Molyneux especially, you look at how his channel has grown. I mean, that dude is just rock solid. He just makes so much goddamn sense. He's the best guy out there, I think, for just filtering the current events and what's going on in society through a philosophical perspective, through principles. And he's not dogmatic. He's not religious, and he's not committed to any kind of political ideology or anything. It's all about logical, provable principles that he can break down to you at any point. Oh, fired up today on a Friday. We still got a lot more to talk about. I have had about goddamn 6 cups of espresso here, so please excuse the federal outrage chancellor as he goes and presents his flow for the stream, and leave some ratings out of 10 on how you're liking the flow there. Be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy, the most disrespectful podcast on the internet, ladies and gentlemen. The only one where, you know, your host takes takes pisses live on the internet. Thank you, Justin Potts. So I'll take a 9. Thank you. You know, got to get it done. Got to get it flushed out, ladies and gentlemen. 6 cups of drugs. Yeah, I'm loving this espresso machine I got. It's pretty potent there. Potent dragon energy. Oh, the hand cannon is back, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, look up for those skeptical of the primordial soup thing. This is this seems to be a pretty solid experiment that they did back in the 50s called the Miller-Urey experiment. Miller-Urey, U-R-E-Y experiment. You can look that up on Wikipedia. Seems to be a good little breakdown of how you can get organic compounds from. It looks like they used water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen, and those molecules came together to form amino acids. So. What up, Dirk? Yeah, I'm gonna get another Perrier here. U-R-E-Y. Miller-Urey experiment. U-R-E-Y. And so yeah, I understand being skeptical of the theory of evolution, but goddamn, at some point the evidence just mounts up. Like, I mean, and people are still so scientifically ignorant. They still talk about it like, oh, I don't believe we evolved from monkeys, and you know, you even hear left-wing people talk about it like that, and it's like, we didn't evolve from monkeys. The theory is that it was a common ancestor between apes and monkeys there. And you know, the big mystery in the fossil record is how did the brain size double in like a matter of like less than 10,000 years. There was a big environmental pressure there or something. And I think a lot of it has to do with climatological pressures that were happening on the proto-hominids there. But I wasn't there, ladies and gentlemen. I got no empirical data. And if you ask people like Kevin Bennett, the fossils are one big conspiracy. There are no real dinosaur bones. It's all a conspiracy, everybody. Carbon dating has been debunked. I remember there was some podcasts back that me and Kevin Bennett did where we would have these big evolution debates, and I don't know. I don't know enough about archaeology to be accurately skeptical of carbon dating, and it's just like that's a lot of shit to make up for a fake theory. But I just don't think conservatives are doing themselves any favors by, I mean, if you're going to be that skeptical about the evolution theory, I mean, at least there's actual data that, you could say the data is fake or you could say it's being, manipulated, but at least there you can see a process of the scientific method there to an attempt to validate their claims. There's no scientific method being applied to the Bible story. It's just like, it's written, and so it happened. I believe it. And it's like, this is not in the realm of, being skeptical. This is not in the realm of like critical thinking. This is like, it's just religious faith. It's in a total separate category from, truth and logic and empiricism and, being able to prove something. So I don't think conservatives do themselves any favors by clinging to the religious metaphysics and saying that that's truth. That you're just kind of discrediting the term truth when you say, like, the Jesus story is it's just true. God exists. It's just true. And it's like, no, true is a category that's relegated for things that you can prove. All right, mathematically or logically, and you can't do either with the existence of God. Stephen Molyneux has a great argument debunking the Christian idea of God, that you can't have a being that is simultaneously all-knowing and all-powerful at the same time. It's an inherent contradiction. Like, think about if God knows that a train is going to crash it's going to go off the train tracks and crash, and if he decides to, like, the whole assumption is that he has the power to come down and intervene if he so wishes and stop the train from going off the tracks. So that's why people pray. That's why, they think miracles happen, because God reaches down and manipulates things in the universe and changes things. So if he has the all-knowing foresight to know the train is going to go off the tracks, then if he goes ahead and decides to intervene and stop the train from going off the tracks, he then, if he does that, invalidates the previous knowledge he had that the train was going to go off the tracks. If he changes it and the train doesn't go off the tracks, well, then that invalidates his foresight from before. And so he was wrong then to assume that the train was going to go off the tracks, because he stopped it. And so you can't be all-knowing and all-powerful at the same time, because if you change the outcome, then you invalidate your all-knowingness, your omniscience there. So that's a nice little contradiction. Justin Potts says Epicurus claimed that the existence of God proved there is no God. He claimed that if God cannot stop evil, then he is not all-powerful. He then argued if God can prevent evil but does not, then God is not good. Yeah, that's another good one. That's another good one. And then they make this like, well, God gives us free will, and he's they simultaneously make the argument, well, he gives us free will, and so he just lets things happen, and so he's kind of a hands-off God. He doesn't really, he just sets things in motion and then they just happen. Well, if that's the case, then why would you ever pray for anything? Well, that's the case. Prayer is nonsense and miracles don't happen. If God is just a hands-off God and never intervenes in the system, well, then why would you even, he might as well not even be here. He just created it and then hands off, lets it just happen. Then what is the point of, praying or, hoping for a miracle to happen, or, if he doesn't intervene, he might as well not even be here. But yeah, I think clinging to that metaphysical narratives that you can't prove, all it does is empower the atheists that also happen to be communist leftists. Like Sam Harris. Then you make him look like a genius because he can debunk simple Christian morality. Like, it's not that hard to prove that God doesn't exist. And so people treat him like this fucking genius when, he's also a determinist, which is, almost as retarded as thinking that Jesus came back from the dead. To be a determinist and then try to convince people of determinism. Like you're arguing for determinism. That I thought I couldn't change my mind. If everything's predetermined, then no, you need to believe in determinism because it's true. Well, I don't think it's true. That's just my determined path. No, you need to change your mind because you have free will. Oh, right. I thought I was a robot, Sam. Why are you writing this book about determinism, trying to prove it, if people can't change their minds? Everything's determined. So why would you even try to argue for determinism? You're a robot. And I think, the determinism versus free will argument is a little muddied because I think there's a spectrum there. I think based on how intelligent you are, there's a grading scale of free will that people have. Like somebody who's mentally impaired, that they have an IQ of like 60, they just genetically got a shit roll of the dice, and they're mentally handicapped. That person, we would all recognize that person has less free will than a person that's normally capable and fully functional. The person that's why we give them more leeway if they have a spastic attack in public, and we're like, why can't you control yourself? It's like he has a genetic problem. Ease off. Like he doesn't. Things are more determined in his life than it is for somebody who who has a little bit more intelligence and control and discipline over their own actions. And so there's a grading scale of free will based on intelligence and genetics. So that in that sense, there is a little bit of determinism and there's a little bit of free will at the same time. What up, Bobby Bombay? My thoughts on intelligent design and irreducible complexity as first presented by Thomas Aquinas. Do you agree in intelligent design, or do you see a random series of events? No. Intelligent design, I think there is an intelligence to nature, so in far that things like there's evolutionary changes that happen, and there's trial and error, and there's a certain intelligence to the progression of things that work efficiently. Like if a hunting strategy that a certain predator has in the jungle works really well, like a tiger, their camouflage works well with the environment in the certain climate that they're in. Their claws and their teeth and their hunting strategy works really well. Well, then that species had a certain intelligence behind in the way that it was going through and coming into nature. Whereas some like extinct species, I'm trying to think of a species that went extinct that it isn't like because of a asteroid hitting the planet, like the what is it, the dodo bird or whatever. The strategies for existing that the dodo bird had and hunting and whatever didn't work, and so they were cut out of the evolutionary system. And there are certain plants that have a way of getting their nutrients, or where they grow in relevance to the sunlight or whatever. There's a certain intelligence to nature, but it isn't therefore evidence that it was created by a designer. I think that's something we do as humans, because we create things and we design things, so it's kind of an anthropomorphization of nature. Like anthropomorphization is usually like used in the context of like we make forest animals more like humans in cartoons. where I think we're putting human characteristics on the design of nature instead of just recognizing that it's kind of just happening. There's a happening, you know, in human consciousness. Everything that happens in our world seems to come from a designer. And so I think that's kind of putting human characteristics onto the universe and assuming that's how everything is done. Everything has to have a designer or come from some kind of, you know, higher intelligence designing down the system. But I don't think there's any proof that just because, you know, like what's his name, that dude from Growing Pains, he's like a super fundamentalist Christian. They got mocked so bad on the internet when they were like, bananas are designed for you know, human hands, and this is proof that God made bananas for us to eat. It's like, oh, it's not any proof for a metaphysical deity, you fucking schlub. The banana fits perfectly in your hand, just like a penis. Proof that we all need to be gay. What? Kirk Cameron, that's his name. Yeah. Oh, dude, the shape of a banana, therefore God. So no, I don't think there's any quote unquote intelligent design that proves it was designed by a creator. I think there's a creative biological force called biology in the universe, which is, you know, it's kind of just happening. It's what happens when planets orbit around their star in a certain distance away to have liquid water and enough sunlight for biological matter to come together and start to form single-celled organisms, and then works its way up until the organisms start thinking and talking about themselves and theorizing how they were made. So yeah, I wanted to get into I got a Netflix account. I got a free trial Netflix account. And they sent me an email that I'd get a free month or whatever. So I was like, all right, let me check out some of this Netflix comedy. And god damn, dude, I was going into it. I was ready to laugh. I just wanted to laugh, and man, what a cesspool of just boring nonsense it was, man. God damn it! Like I watched the Comedians of the World thing. I watched probably the first 20 minutes of Neil Brennan. And, you know, I love Chappelle's Show, and he co-wrote on Chappelle's Show whenever I've heard him on podcasts, and he seems like, you know, somewhat of a funny dude. But, dude, he opened his special with just the most retarded, like, he was arguing for, like, you know, saying like in the setup of his jokes, like, oh, like, of course the government is the bedrock of the stable bedrock of our society. I can't believe that you would just that you would be anti-government. And it's like just the nonsense of these fucking people. What's up, Kashava? Just in the pure Trump derangement, you know, and making fun of Republicans trying to take away women's reproductive rights. Like, no one is arguing that like abortion should be banned. Like, no one is arguing that. It's just the main argument in going on in the public sphere seems to be taxpayer funded abortion is bad, which is like, there's an argument both sides on abortion, like women should be able to make that choice if they want to, but it's also at the same time you're kind of murdering a potential baby there. So it's a murky argument, and so it's a complicated thing. And so what you definitely don't want to do is force people to fund it through taxation. Like, because if you consider abortion to be murder, which there's a legitimate argument that you're committing some form of murder there, you don't want to force those people to fund murder through their tax dollars. That's super fucked up. And, so this idea that we're trying to take away women's reproductive rights, what a weird way to phrase it. Like, so dumb, dude. And then, like, considering Trump to be some kind of normal Republican is, like, so dumb as well. Like, Trump is a total fucking outsider and was a registered Democrat for most of his fucking life and donated to these Democrats and shit. And he's a businessman, and he comes in and wants to secure the border because he recognizes the economic harm that happens, and the cultural demographic shifting, and the left using the illegal immigrants as a voter base. He recognizes all that, so he wants to close the border, but that makes him a racist right-winger. And he's just one of these dumb redneck Republicans all of a sudden. We know he was born in Queens, and existed in Hollywood and had this big reality show for all this time. But he's just a redneck, dumbass right winger. It's like just the lack of nuance that these people have. Just and it passes off as comedy because like you're just playing to this narrative that people are propagandized into. So pathetic. And then I watched some of Nick Swardson. Like, I love Nick Swardson. Just in general, I listened to him on the Barry Katz podcast the other day. But man, I tried watching the first like 10, 15 minutes of his 30-minute special there on Netflix, and it was like sad. It was like, I don't know, dude. He looked bummed out. Like, he came out and the audience was kind of flat, and he just started talking about, he just went straight into fart and shit jokes, and it was like, ugh, this is so just juvenile and meaningless. It's relentless. If you say anything with any kind of meaning to it, it has to be based on a leftist, lying, falsified narrative that we either hate Trump or we hate white people. And that's the only meaning that can be passed across to the viewer. Otherwise, you have to be relentlessly meaningless and just talk about absolutely nothing and make it seem like it's a big deal. Like, Chris D'Elia is the king of meaningless nonsense. He does make me laugh just because he's a super fucking skilled comedian, just with his voices and his act outs and shit and how he structures his shit. But he's like the bro, frat boy version of Seinfeld. Just relentlessly meaningless, just goofy for the sake of being goofy. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me. I'm just pointing out the biggest people in comedy right now have no meaning behind what they're saying at all. Sebastian Maniscalco, I watched some of his shit, and he's just Italian Seinfeld. He's Seinfeld with an Italian voice, just getting mad at people, for their little social transgressions at the gym or like on a plane. And it's like, airplane humor and going to the gym humor and like I'm old trying to work out humor. And this generation is not going to, it seems like they really shame anybody who tries to say anything with any truth value. Bobby says, in the day, you're right, it's all poop jokes. the comedians are afraid to say anything now, afraid of generalizing a normal group. Exactly. The only group you can generalize and get away with is white people or Republicans. It's like code word for white people. People that recognize the government is evil and taxation is theft and we need a smaller government and the Federal Reserve is fucked up. Those are the people you can generalize because they're just bigots. They're just racist redneck bigots who want a smaller government. How dumb. The government is just a bedrock of our society. How can you criticize the government that's $20 trillion in debt and gets us in all these wars? And don't you just miss Obama? Oh man, don't you just miss a slickster apologist for communism? That's like Cat Williams. I watched a little bit of Cat Williams. Now I held out hope that Cat Williams was going to be a little bit based and have something to say on both sides, but no. It was all this apologist nonsense horseshit for Obama and just like praising him for his skin color. And it's like so fucking dumb, dude. Bombay says Burr is scared stiff. He can't say anything. I think actually, I do agree because I listen to him on his podcast and stuff, and he has a feminist wife who kind of like has his balls in a little holder thing there. But he's probably, Louis C.K. is coming back, which is great for comedy and great for pushing back against political correctness. But as far as, the people that are going strong right now, I think Burr is the best. But you're right. You're right. He does apologize for his opinions too much. And he has to play this character like and play down his intelligence and call himself stupid and trash white people and trash Trump to a certain extent. And he can't. To a certain extent, I think that's how he really thinks. But he's like the furthest level of political incorrectness that comedy seems to be able to tolerate right now. He like walks that fine line of almost getting to some truth and then reeling it back, and almost getting to some truth but then reeling it back. But I think this next generation of comics that I'm coming up in, people are ready for they're tired of people being silenced and talked down to and like all this oversensitivity and nonsense. It's tiresome, and people are ready to laugh at some real shit. And so this next crop of comics I'm going to that I'm coming up in, I think we're gonna turn it back to some real edgy truth in comedy, and it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I may have to take another piss break here. I'm so loaded up on espresso, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Cat Williams' joke about Trump was like, he's orange and he has Nazis in his cabinet. It's like so dumb and wrong. Dumb, and you just play into the narrative. Yeah, Hicks and Norm Macdonald, bring it back. That's two of my favorite comedians of all time, man. It's funny, like Bill Hicks was, a true liberal in the true sense of the word. He wasn't really a leftist communist type. But, if Hicks was alive today, he would be considered alt-right. Hicks would be a Nazi because, I don't think he could resist making fun of the idiocy of the social justice left. But yeah, that's the thing, why they promote those terms of racism and sexism. I think what it is it's a power play to try and get white people to shut up, especially in comedy, because mockery is so powerful for destroying narratives. And so, if you can't make fun of any group except white people, well, then that like radically reduces everything white people can make fun of into, if you're not self-deprecating, you're a piece of shit, racist, homophobe, bigot, asshole. The only comedy you can do is self-deprecating, or you have to, make fun of, like Seinfeld, like a hair on the wall in the shower. Like that's how little and insignificant and meaningless your comedy has to be, for it to pass as a fucking straight white male there. Otherwise, you're an oppressor that is taking advantage of your position of privilege on stage, and we can't have that, ladies and gentlemen. All right, one more piss break. Federal outrage chancellor with his small bladder, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So yeah, I just dipped into the Netflix cesspool there and was super disappointed. I was really ready to laugh, and all I got was just relentless, meaningless propaganda that was horrifically dumb and stupid and just boring. And so, I think people are really ready for some hardcore politically incorrect truth. I mean, it's obvious with Trump getting elected, and we're ready for the next generation's Andrew Dice Clay, and I'm thinking that's going to be me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not playing a character on stage. It's I'm putting my balls on the line every night on stage, for the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I will never back down or bend the knee, and that probably means I won't be approved of by the official gatekeepers there at the cesspool Netflix. So that's why we're doing the live streams. That's why I'm hanging out with you beautiful people every day. And, we're going to build the audience up outside of the mainstream channels and work around the communists there. And I really respect what Owen Benjamin is doing. He spoke out against the trans kid nonsense in Hollywood, got dropped by his agent at CAA, and took a huge pay cut, got his shows protested all across the country, and so he can't even publicly post the venues that he's playing at because people will call the venue and call him a racist and get his show shut down. And so he just posts generally where he's going to go play, and then he rents out the theater himself, sells the tickets himself, and just has the community of people he talks to in his live streams and shit. And I think that's the way to do it, because ultimately I don't want to have my material filtered by mainstream channels anyway. I don't think it's worth the big money to have your material censored and filtered through these leftist weirdos who whatever they think is acceptable. I think the real best comedy comes unfiltered and straight to the audience. It's a lot of what Doug Stanhope grew into in his career there. He just developed his own audience and then just started renting out places and selling them out just through social media posts and shit. So it can be done. It will be done, ladies and gentlemen. It's the good fight. I'm here to fight it. So yeah, a couple other things. Trump impeached. So to get back to that, do I think Trump will be impeached? No, because in order to garner up enough public support for that kind of thing, I think they would have to legitimately prove that Trump did something massively illegal, and they're not going to be able to do that because I don't think he has done anything massively illegal. So there's going to be so much pushback. Like, Trump has so much real support. He has way more real support than any of these people on the left, because it's, the love for Trump is stronger than the hate for Trump, because people recognize that Trump is staving off this spiraling down into big government, banana republic, third world economic collapse that probably would have happened, and foreign wars probably would have happened under Hillary Clinton. And so there's going to be such a pushback if they try to pull some nonsense fake impeachment about, they try to drum up something in this Russia investigation that's not real, or I don't think that's going to fly at all. And the people who support Trump have all the guns, so and the military is behind him for the most part. And the people that are against Trump are keyboard warriors at best. They're out there eating soy stir fry and trying to sell their paintings like Hitler did, and they're just in their beta rage video game worlds. And so Bobby says, especially with witnesses, but the thing is, a guy like you and I don't get caught with this stuff. We play the game, but don't have enough vested interest to suffer the outcome. Not sure what exactly you're referring to. Oh, lying under oath. Same as Nixon went down with lying under oath. I've done it. It sucks. Yeah, I don't think I don't think they're going to get him on anything. Because they continually underestimate him, which is, it's just one of my favorite things to watch, is the left underestimating Trump's intelligence and continually failing to beat him to the punch ever. They continually repeat how he's such an idiot and a buffoon. But if he's so dumb, why can't they just outsmart him? Wouldn't that be the move? You should outsmart him. But they can't do it. Because, the God Emperor, he plays 4D chess, and the left plays checkers. Identity politics checkers. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be impeached. But it's pretty insane seeing how the bureaucracy that's built up over time forms this deep state opposition to any outsiders or any populist uprising. Like in Britain right now, I don't even know if Brexit is going to go through, because there's all this establishment pushback against Brexit, and they don't even want to come to an agreement to make it happen. That they voted on the referendum. They voted leave, and now it's all this political grandstanding and negotiating little particulars of the deal of how they're going to get out of the EU system, and who knows if it's even going to happen. It's just the British people, they will do what the EU tells them to do. That's all they need to do. The EU knows best. And the Russia investigation too. It's all like these resentful sore loser leftists who can't believe the populace voted against their ideas. They can't believe that, you know, the people don't like them, and they see through their propaganda horseshit. And so it's this resentful grandstanding. That's the Russia investigation and the opposition to Brexit. Same thing. Same thing. They don't want the public to be able to make their own decisions. It's all about praying to the God of the state, ladies and gentlemen. The EU is necessary for your brains to function. Bobby says, forget the person. Our country's representation to the world is at stake. What does it say about a country of free folks that willingly allows a scallywag to reign, British or not? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, do the people have, I mean, but this is democracy. This is what democracy is. It's a big, especially when the government grows this big, it's tyrannical rule over the will of the populace, because that's the fundamental assumption of taxes, is that the populace isn't smart enough to make good economic decisions with their own money. So we need to siphon off that money, all right, and let the godlike bureaucrats delegate what is done with that money, because they pat you on your head and say, you're not smart enough to spend your own money effectively. We'll handle it for you. We'll make the decisions. And so that's the idea that gets spread in society when a government gets this big and corrupt and out of control. People can't make their own decisions. We need the EU to be our brains for us. The EU knows best. You know, the deep state, yeah, I need glasses and a hat. We know what the British people desire. They desire to submit their will to the bureaucrats. Theresa May knows best. Don't listen to Trump. Trump is an evil orange bigot who Nigel Farage and Trump are the same bigoted ilk. We will not submit our country to bigotry. We will let Islam come in. We will institute Sharia law because we are progressive. We will submit to the Arab rape gangs. They deserve our children. Don't listen to Tommy Robinson or Nigel Farage or Donald Trump or Alex Jones. They're all bigoted, evil people that don't want you to be taken care of by the benevolent EU. Kashav was talking about Yellowstone blowing up. Who knows, dude? It's a little dormant volcano there in the middle of the U.S. But I think we should probably focus on staving off communism and economic collapse before we worry about the volcanoes there. You know, because if the volcano blows, none of it's going to matter anyway. We're not going to be able to stop it. Maybe we could take the entire Democrat establishment, morph them into some kind of cork there, some kind of human cork, and stuff it in the volcano to stop it from erupting. And perhaps that's how we can solve the environment. We can solve the environmental crisis by taking the entire Democrat establishment, morphing them into a cork-like tool there, and plugging the volcano. All right? If they really cared about the environment, they would do that for us, okay? But they're hypocrites. You need to become a human cock. It is for the will of the people. You must plug Yellowstone up. Kind of like, you know, kind of like Justin Trudeau's butt plug that he wears constantly. Did you know that Justin Trudeau wears a butt plug? Yeah, dude. It's made up from the same circumcised penis flesh there that that Sandra Bullock's facial cream is made of. That's what I heard. That Justin Trudeau wears butt plugs made of foreskin, made by the Soros company. That's what I heard, ladies and gentlemen. Look into it. But yeah, ultimately I'm an anarchist, so I don't consider myself a nationalist. But nationalism in America is a little different because it's based on principles. It's based on, we're supposed to have a small government, we're supposed to have free market capitalism, we have a separation of church and state and whatnot. We have a Bill of Rights and free speech and right to bear arms, and that's what the country is based on. So there's an element of nationalism with Americanism that I agree with when it's based on the principles therein. Nationalism in general, I think, is kind of dumb. Just having an allegiance to a flag, regardless of the principles that are behind the flag. You're just like, bow down to the flag, and that's that government as God thing that I was talking about earlier. But it's funny how nationalism is now a bad word now that Trump has used it. It's nationalism is now akin to Nazism. All right, but that's why you don't see the Democratic Socialists calling themselves nationalists. All their policies are national policies, that we should have this 70% tax rate and income redistribution and free college and free healthcare and all this nonsense. Those are all nationalist policies. They're not trying to institute them on China or Russia. It's like, it's within the borders of the United States, so it's a nationalist policy. But you'll never see the socialists calling themselves national socialists. All right? Because that gets a little dicey. People might Google National Socialism and see the company that they're keeping there with their ideology. Little Hitlerian there. Hitlerian policies. Justin Potts says, I could be wrong, but didn't Obama praise nationalism when he was in office? I don't know. I can't remember anything specific. But I'm sure during his campaign, he probably had some kind of rah-rah nonsense. Because, when he was campaigning, he was against the big banks. And he was against all the foreign wars. But, as soon as he gets in office and has to repay those favors from the people who financed his campaign, all of a sudden he's bailing out the banks, no matter how evil their policies are or how much they destroyed the economy. Bail them out, baby. They're too big to fail. And then, continuing all the wars. Every day of his presidency was spent at war, and, expanding it in terms of secret drone programs and destabilization of all the Middle Eastern countries and collapsing Libya, supporting the rebels in Syria that turned out to be ISIS. Whoops! It's not treason. That was just a whoopsie. All right? So never talk about it again, and that's easy because, the leftist press won't bring up anything having to do with reality, and so, you don't hold Obama's feet to the fire. You just, have empty wishes like Cat Williams about don't we all miss Obama? He was so great. Oh, I've even heard people say, Trump is so bad. I wish we had. It makes me wish we still had George Bush in office. Yeah, because comparing a million dead Iraqis with some mean tweets and wanting to enforce border laws. Oh my God! Please give us the smoldering pile of a million dead Iraqis. That would much more preferable to enforcing your border laws. People are just so fucking propagandized. It's insane, dude. Show me your vape coils, or do you spin your own? The vape coils, I just get them from a vape shop down the street. I don't know what this is a smock. And it's 0.25, between 30 and 50 watts, I think is what it says on there. It's printed on there. But yeah, it's pretty goddamn satisfying here. The Smock Vape Pen Plus gives you lots of dragon energy, ladies and gentlemen. Oh wait, there it is, baby. It's a tank. There, you can get a little close-up view on there. Yeah. I had a bunk atomizer in it not too long ago, and it just wouldn't charge up, so I thought it was dead. So I tried going with the Joule. These pods are so goddamn expensive, it's unbelievable. You gotta have a fucking Beverly Hills mansion to afford that habit. That is just absurd, dude. We get it. You vape, okay? You're so cool. I know. I don't even, I wish there was some kind of nicotine delivery system that wasn't obnoxious. I've tried the gum. It's terrible. I've tried snus. Terrible. Cigarettes are obviously terrible. I'd prefer to stay alive, ladies and gentlemen. I enjoy life. But nicotine is tremendous. It's probably my favorite drug. It's a close, trifecta up there with caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine. But this is the most effective delivery system I've found that doesn't fucking kill you dead on the spot. I try to smoke some weed occasionally, but honestly, it doesn't work very well with my brain as far as being creative on it. Like where it helps me is when I have a creative problem and I'm stuck in a rut and I haven't smoked for a while. Then I can like take a hit of weed and come up with a creative solution to a problem that I'm having. But like as far as like executing things, like writing my scripts or like writing a comedy bit, like yeah. And I've tried all different kinds of weed. I know sativa and indica, and I know it's different types of highs and whatnot. Just for me, especially socially and creatively, it's like it slows me down too much to execute anything on it. And I don't know. It's not the best for my makeup. I work really well on alcohol and caffeine, but as far as getting shit done, weed is not my friend. But it does help you, give you some outside perspective on your behavior and whatnot, and organizing your day. So I like it like once or twice a week. Get a little stoned late at night and think about how you're doing everything, and it'll give you a nice little inventory of your own behavior. So it's nice for a little reset,
you know, once or twice a week, I think getting real stoned is pretty beneficial. No more flowers, the key, oils and bangers. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I hit a weed pen on the podcast one time, and it was a train wreck. When I had I had Heaven, my roommate, on here, and we both got real quiet and we're like awkward. And we're like, yeah, what do we talk about? Yeah, and I'm also really sensitive to it. I don't know, something about my biology. I had a period there where I was smoking almost every day on weed, and I would still get real anxious and like all inside my head. And I'm introverted to begin with, so I don't know. Yeah, one and done for sure. One tiny hit and I'm good. Because I had friends in high school that would just take it way too deep, and it was just like, why are we even smoking anymore? We're so fucking stoned. It's like there's no point to this shit. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, probably gonna wrap it up here. Got to get out there and make some money on Postmates, get my bills paid. But yeah, appreciate y'all coming and hanging out with me. I'll share some clips out on Instagram at Nick Jordan himself. Follow me on there. At I am Nick Jordan on Twitter. Nick Jordan on Facebook. Search up the Outrage Cast. You can find the audio to this podcast on iTunes or any of the podcast apps and whatnot. If you're feeling generous, there's a Bitcoin address below. Super chat's always welcome. But I just appreciate y'all coming in, hanging out, and enjoying what I'm doing here. Yeah, I'll be on stage tonight. If anybody's out in LA, the Fourth Wall Comedy Club in North Hollywood. Up there rocking it out, trying out some new shit, and I'm gonna rock it out. But yeah, hope y'all have a beautiful fucking Friday out there, and hopefully we got some sketches coming up next week. I'm gonna try to corral Kevin Bennett and fucking Igor, and we're gonna get some shit made for you. But in the meantime, I'm gonna be on here on this stream every day, rocking it out with you lovely people, and speaking truth to these goddamn communists out here. All right, I'm the John Wick of political talk. All right, we're pulling no punches, throwing guns at people and shit, breaking arms. Whatever we gotta do. All right, it's all self-defense because they're coming at us. The fucking straight white males are right in the crosshairs out there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not backing down. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Hope y'all have a beautiful fucking Friday out there. Go kick some ass. Start a business and get some pussy. All right, that's what it's all about. And until tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see y'all beautiful motherfuckers later. Peace out. Archer, you missed it, brother, man. We're already 90 minutes in. All right, I'll catch you tomorrow, big boy. See you, buddy.